Hello, hi everyone. Roberto here.
Ellie.
Jake mentioned the theme for today is we take a character from the very early concept and we see it through to putting it into the game. This is a way for us to show you the day-to-day work in a AAA video game studio. So we wanted to show you how things work, what you can expect if you want to join the video games industry. We thought to use this artifact, this character, to see how things work. I'll go very quickly into a bit of an introduction in case you don't know the game we make or our studio. So we are Creative Assembly. It's a studio that's been around for quite a long time. Total War, the game itself, it's a strategy game that has just celebrated its 25th year anniversary. It started as a historical game where you can replay battles in different historical moments like medieval times, China, the Empire, recently, 10 years ago now, actually, we started a partnership with Games Workshop, and we brought our franchise also to fantasy, where we've delivered 3 titles, Warhammer 1, 2, and 3, set in the old world. And we've just announced at the Game Awards this year that we are working on Total War Warhammer 40,000 and the next historical title, Medieval 3. Our studio is also working on the sequel to Alien Isolation. It's another title we are particularly proud of, and it's like more survival horror, so an entirely different genre. But yeah, here as we are talking, we're focusing on Total War. That's the game we build, and the Creative Assembly also as a studio has been around. It's not clicking anymore, but it's been around for a while. There we go. The studio has been founded in 1987, so quite a long time ago. It's one of the oldest and largest game studios in the UK. So, a quick word on Total War, in case you don't know the game. It's a strategy game, but it combines 2 aspects. So there is one, what we call campaign, where you have your whole world. It can be like, medieval Europe, it can be China, it can be the Warhammer continents, and you have armies and cities that you move on the campaign map. So the objective here is to conquer the world. So it's a classical grand strategy game, and you might be familiar with the genre. When your army moving on the map encounters another army, that's where we start a battle. And here Total War has made realism and authenticity one of its core pillars. In a battle here, you have different units that as a general you can command, and you have to be quite strategic. It follows quite accurately the rules of cavalry. If it's running down a hill, then it will be more effective. But if you have people with a lance, then it's going to be an issue. You can conquer cities or just have battles in fields, and it's been quite successful. Even the BBC used it in the past for some TV programs, and because of its authenticity. So it's something that we're really passionate about. Okay, that's it as an overview for the game itself. I think this is enough to give an idea of how it works. To a more applicable wherever you're going to end up working, if it's in the games industry, this is the journey that our character will follow. And so if you start a game, the preconception, like in Total War, it's we kind of know the game we're developing, so that's a bit of a more lightweight phase. So it's more when we enter into the concept phase and okay, what historical period are we going to touch, and which parts of that historical periods we are we're going to focus on. Do we want to focus on diplomacy and allegiances? Do we want, in case of medieval, the Pope or the families? Which are the aspects that we want to stress on the most in this game? Then we start pre-production, where we figure out how the game is going to be built, and this is where our team typically is at its busiest, because we work for the engine team for Total War, so our own version of Unreal or Unity. When Total War was started, there was no such thing. We had to build our in-house engine, and this allowed us through the year to be really tailored around the game we want to develop. So, for example, we have hundreds of units on screen, and other engines will struggle. Our engine is particularly customized to be efficient from that point of view. Another aspect is, for example, the animation system. We can really go for efficiency, but also depth of so many fights happening at the same time on the screen. So the tech for Total War, it's all built in-house by our team, and it's been it's quite an interesting challenge, I would say. So after pre-production, when we figure out the game we want to make and how we want to make it, full production starts. And here it's really, not just executing on the vision, but also we keep playing the game and we realize, oh, this part is not fun, we need to change it. We have this idea for how the campaign could work, and sometimes changes big and small happen in this stage, until finally the game is ready to be launched, at which point we start the post-launch, because we tend to work quite a lot after release to keep providing, additional factions that the players can play, or new areas, new battlefields, new areas on the map. So yeah, this is quite an important piece for us. Okay, so I think that's it for the overall introduction. So I'll hand over to Ellie. I don't know how much I want to introduce you and embarrass you, but Ellie is just fantastic. So she's worked in VFX, in the art department, in cinematics, and now she's acting as a bit of the connective tissue between art and tech, since we are a technical department, but we need to work really well with our artists, and Ellie is the person who helps us doing that. And so over to you and the clicker.
Thank you. Hi. So this was, sort of showing you what our game is like, and how the engine sort of supports us make the game we want to make. But the next part that I wanted to kind of focus on is, again, what we're talking about, the characters. Characters, are such a big part of Total War. There's so many of them on screen at the same time, but actually each of them has quite a unique, journey from the initial concept and design right the way through to balancing in the final game, because there's so much going on at the same time. And we just keep picking more characters in our game, and post-release, that's what we keep doing. But to make each one feel unique, there has to be a lot of thought and process that goes into that. So these are the main sort of areas I'll be covering from a artistic perspective, start to finish. So where do we start? It's the character design and what it is on paper. So this is an example from Warhammer 3. But we have our designers put together an idea of a fun character in our games. What kind of things are going to make that character unique? What's going to be its strengths? What's going to be its weaknesses? And how are players going to be strategically using those in their battles and in their game to make unique experiences time and time again? For those of you who don't know Total War, because you can play as so many different types of characters, people will keep replaying our game as a different faction each time. So it's really important that we put, the amount of effort into this unique kind of experience each time. So this example here is about a character called a Sorcerer Prophet. He's a dwarf character, so quite small in stature, I guess, on the battle. But he is a quite important character, like a lord or a hero character, and so from the kind of outline there, you can see he's got multiple spells laws that he can sort of tap into. He has Dark Forge weapons, so he has magical attacks, which is going to make him more of a centerpiece and a focal point in some of the gameplay. And he also has missile attacks. Lots of things that immediately on paper, as a VFX artist, you're thinking, right, okay, there's a lot of things I'm going to have to design visually here to make this guy exciting and make him a bit different. Same from the animation perspective. And for the character art perspective, how can I make this guy stand out from maybe an infantry unit? The next thing we kind of look at is a faction like across the board. So when we're releasing characters in a new piece of content, this, for example, would be one of our faction packs. You can see there's a lot of characters on the screen here. This is about 30. This is quite standard what we would put together to release as a new piece of content, and we line up every single unit we're going to have in there, looking at scale, the silhouettes, what really kind of makes them stand out. And at this point, this is a very rough concept, like quite not highly detailed, but we're seeing how they're going to sort of measure up side by side when you're actually in the game. And from this image, VFX teams, animation teams, they'll be looking at those key points and going, right, this is how I'm going to design this one. This is going to require a lot more effort than the other. You can see this guy in the middle, the fiery guy. He's probably the most expensive out of all of them because he's going to need unique animations. He's got this fiery tail and some unique shaders and VFX design in his magical attacks. You can already tell from that little image. So yeah, this is the sort of first stage where we're thinking about where we're kind of putting our efforts and how much design needs to go into these individual units. The next thing we go then down to that sort of more individual level. Mainly we spend a lot more effort on things like our hero characters or our generals in our historical games. We have a character concept, which is a bit more like that top part on the right-hand side, which will be like the front, maybe a slightly sideways stance of the character, maybe the back, some of their weapons. You'll see it all laid out there. And it's kind of a blueprint as to how the character artist is going to build this model. And at this point, we'll be reviewing it with design, we'll be reviewing it with the art director to get that sort of right feel that, yeah, it's going to be, this is an important character, this is less important. You see there's some points, feedback here on this particular area of like, the character was too sort of Disney, too caricature, and we had to sort of adjust some of the, the facial features. Then there's more reference given. But all of this is kind of feeding into that general feeling of the character. It's very grim dark. It's got, we want the VFX to kind of reflect that. And there's more like a reference mood board there. So there will be a lot of characters that will have these individual concepts as well, is really how the character artist is going to start. But again, it's more information for the other teams working on this. Once we've kind of agreed on this concept, we then sort of start building the blocks for it. Where we start in our games is we'll have possibly a proxy, which is a kind of a mesh that's approximating, the volume and the size of the character. This helps then the teams that are working on sort of the rigging and skinning to build a rig that's going to make the character feel weighty and give all the animation team those kind of controls that they're going to be able to get the look they're after. So we work with a proxy and then we build the rig. And then obviously we're skinning like a basic mesh just for the animators to start using and start their animation tests. Whilst this is going on, sometimes at the same time in parallel, you'll have the character artist then starting to work on this detailed version of the 3D model. So this is a very high poly version of our game character. This is not what it'll end up looking like in the game. We use these models to then sort of project to create the normal maps and the details for the lower, the less detailed models, let's say, that are kind of game ready. I'm just going to show another one. So these are where we're at the starting point for the character artist. So they will work on very high detailed meshes to start with, and then we bake down those details into lesser detailed meshes. The next part of this then is to make your mesh sort of game ready, you then create levels of detail. Now, as Roberto said, when we're talking about a Total War game, he said hundreds. I got some numbers. It's more like 20,000 plus characters you might see on a screen at the same time. That's not even talking when we're thinking when we're talking about multiplayer, and we have more. So we have to be, like our engine has been designed to really, that's its strength. It can render so much on screen in terms of characters. But the thing we have to do is consider how much detail you're seeing on the screen at the right time. If you've ever played a Total War game, you can go right up close to your character, see its face, or you can be really far away. So we have to cater for both things with our engine. What we do is, it's quite standard in most games, again, when your character or your meshes are further away, you have a lesser detailed version of it. The main thing that you want to be doing is maintaining the silhouette, so that from a player perspective, your game's moving fast, you won't even notice that that mesh has changed to a lesser detailed version. So we call them LODs. An example of the smallest type of LOD you might see is on the bottom there. It might even be smaller than that, if you imagine. Some characters could be, almost a couple of pixels. And at that point, I would even say that I think we scale it down.
Yeah, exactly.
But
The same rendering these many triangles would be pointless.
So things like capes and armor, might be something we don't care too much about that. We're just trying to preserve that silhouette so people don't notice it too much. And at that point, that's all the player needs to not disrupt their game. So after we've got our mesh in a kind of good state, an animation team will start looking at how they're going to design their animations. There's a few passes of it. So I put here just like a first pass and a second pass. There's probably a polished pass as well. The first animation pass is really just blocking out, key poses of how your character's going to move, trying to feel like getting the right weight behind it, not focusing on finer details. Quite often in this pass, you won't have like any kind of hand animation, or maybe like you can see some of the weapons. It's kind of just a bit blocked out. It'll be reviewed with design, because they have to make sure it's going to work within the game animation simulation. So they'll feed back and like, oh, this feels too slow. I think that's going to cause problems for our simulation. You're going to have to, make the length of the animation a bit shorter. And then they sort of go more into the second animation pass, which we're adding a little bit more detail here. The next part is sort of what I would call the icing on the cake, maybe, is like the audio and the visual effects to the character. So again, this is an example of a dwarf. He's pretty small. As you can see from his visual effects now, he's pretty powerful. And what we're using VFX for in our animations is to communicate, the damage that a character can give to other units on the battle. You see this guy, you think, yeah, he's really gonna kick some butt. He's really gonna do some damage to your units. If you didn't have all those effects representing that area of damage, you'd be like, okay, he's okay. So that's why people pick, the fancy ones. And that's why we design and give this a lot more thought on these specific characters. So from the VFX perspective, we have our own sort of design process. I'll start again from those thumbnail concepts. These kind of sheets in the background aren't always detailed concepts, but they'll be mood boards about the shape language and the colors and the themes that you're going to be making your effects for a particular spell or a bunch of abilities related to a certain type of faction that feel cohesive and that they're knitted together. And the one in the back there was actually very watery themed Lore of the Deep we had, and we designed that and had lots of waves and tentacles, but common themes that then you can use across your effects. And when we were talking about the specific character faction animations, we had a lot more waves and stuff in there as well to keep that all sort of tied together. Obviously then the assets are created, the meshes are in Houdini or Max and the flip books. And we put it all together in our own in-house effect tools, and then for exactly the animation and characters, we'll put it in our animation tool. So we'll be actually placing the effects in there. Now, from a character perspective, we don't always do specific concepts for attacks or something. If you've got a sort of a mood board or themes that you're working to, generally you can get a good feel of how an attack might work. But in this particular character, this was the alchemist from Cathay, and we had a little bit of a blockage point where we were like, yes, it's got to be metal. Yes, we've got to have these attacks, but what kind of metal are we going to go for? What kind of shapes are we going to use? So our concept artist came up with a few ideas. And in the end, we didn't pick one of them. We picked a combination of two, which is the combination of the bottom two, because we wanted this kind of flowing feeling, but maybe not completely polished, a little bit more rustic. But this is like kind of the idea generation that really helps us, nail down something new that we kind of can't really tackle. So this was the result of it. We've got this flowing like ribbon type metal things. And this is in our animation editor. So the key point I mentioned earlier is like matching. We want to match what the game is expecting. So we're matching the design data of how these things are going to sort of interact with the game simulation. These big circles are representing the area of damage that we're kind of matching with the VFX. So here you're just making sure you fill that sort of area, making sure you make it feel impactful. But that is then going to feed into how that interacts with all the other units on the battlefield. And here we're also going to put in, I'm going to mention it audio, because your VFX without audio, really zero impactful. You really want to feel how big and heavy it is. A really important step there. So I just wanted to go back to this video, which we saw earlier. Once we've got these animations sort of impacting the design and making it fit that, if you can see there, once you've got this big explosion going off, that's the design metadata and how we fit the VFX to it, then pushing all those units out. It triggers all these knockback animations, and then you're getting this impact of how these characters are interacting with each other. So it's starting to feel weighty. It's feeling like they're interacting together in the game. And this is still just the second pass, before we've even polished it. But yeah, that's how we kind of get to this stage. Really feeling how those characters are working together and how you can see how they're going to sort of play well. It's a really long video, so I might just...
Yeah, and it's also, I guess, an example of how all the different disciplines work together. So it's not just, okay, character art, they do their work and then they hand over to the next team. There's a lot of back and forth, and as Ellie was saying, also checking with design, does this work, does this animation, this VFX, do they all work together, keeping in mind that it's a game at the end of the day, so we have to connect it with, the effect that it's having on the battlefield and so forth. So yeah, it's quite, it's a team effort, it's really a team, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the last part, right? You play the game. Is it fun? And more often than not, you're like, we got 90% of the way there. We got 80% of the way there. There's something missing. And that's a really important stage in game development, is constantly playing it. As you saw, like many of the stages of the animation or getting like the VFX in, we will check it in the game. You're looking at it in the context of everything that's interactive. You can't look at it in isolation. And what could go wrong, I guess, at that point? Your hero units are too overpowered. Even on paper, it looked like it would work out, but even visually, maybe some VFX artist has gone to town, and you're like, this is great, and actually now it's drawing too much attention for your players of that exact, that exact set of attacks or something. The speed of the entities might have seemed okay, but actually once you see how many units you've got working together, they seem too noisy, there's too much going on and going around. The lengths of the animations can unbalance some of the unit stats, so we have to be mindful that we're sort of setting certain rules there. If we've got lots of unique attack effects going on, maybe that's been designed in the mind that there's 4 characters in a unit. Later on, a design go, oh no, it doesn't feel meaty enough, we've got to put 10 in, and then once you've done that, you've got to go back and strip back your VFX, because you're like, when there's 10 of them going off, it's looking a little bit crazy. And then your key units standing out, the most key units out of the whole lineup, is it still, once it's in the game, still look that way, that they're really important. Another thing to mention is that our design gave great credit to me, but it's a simulation, so anything that can unbalance it, it's just a fine-tuning of everything. We can do everything we can on theory, on paper, that we think is going to work out. But the most important thing is playing it and seeing if it's fun. And everybody plays slightly different, right? So we can even do masses of testing internally. We have QA and people testing the game, and we have all the developers at the end, trying to try things out. But then it might go live. and then someone plays in a different way. And we're like, oh, we didn't anticipate someone doing that. And then we might have to address how certain units will work as well. So I say it was a big collaboration right to the end of how these characters come to life and how they become fun. And it's not just about the process of getting things in. There's so much, ideas shared between those teams. That's kind of what I wanted to, really sort of track home. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.